My name is Sloan Mercer, 33 years old. The message hit my phone like a door swinging open without a knock. Send me $1,600 for prom. Mom says you have plenty. No greeting, no hello, it's Caleb, just the casual swipe of a hand across my wallet. I actually laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so bold it looped back around to unbelievable, like someone walking into your kitchen, taking the sugar jar, and asking if you could pour it into their pocket while they watch. I typed, "Work for it." Then I set the phone face down on the counter and felt a part of me unclench I didn't realize had been gripping something for years. A single sentence, a single boundary, and already the air in my apartment shifted. Lighter, cleaner, like the window had finally been cracked open after a long, stale winter. Not 5 minutes later, another ping. Melanie. Pay or you're cut off. There it was. The second note in the melody we've played for most of my adult life. Her demand, my compliance, the whole thing dressed as family duty. I looked at those 4 words, and something in my head clicked into a shape it should have taken years ago. It wasn't anger. It was clarity. She still thought she could threaten me with silence, as if her voice were oxygen and my lungs were hers to ration. I washed the coffee mug slowly, just to have something to touch while the tide turned. 10 months ago, I wired $15,000 straight to Caleb's college, no questions asked. Before that, I took on half a year of their mortgage because Melanie said Drew had emergency surgery and couldn't work. I never saw a hospital bill, never asked to. It was easier to believe in emergency than to confront the pattern. There was always a crisis when I had money, and always a way the crisis evaporated the minute my card number cleared. I dried the mug, wiped the counter, and opened my laptop. The bank portal recognized me with that bland, friendly efficiency I used to mistake for safety. I pulled up the mortgage account, the one I'd tethered to my savings when Melanie swore they'd be homeless without me. Autopay toggled to on. I stared at it for a long breath. Then I switched it off. A small blue slider moved from right to left, as easy as flipping a light. Confirm changes? Yes. Remove payment method? Yes. The screen blinked, reset, and returned to neutral. It felt like turning a valve inside myself. It wasn't revenge, it was an audit. The next morning at 8:05, the phone lit up like a siren. 5 missed calls before I'd tied my hair back. Melanie twice. Drew once, which startled me. Caleb once. And my mother, somehow the most predictable and the most complicated, once. I let them all slide into voicemail. The text came like a chorus after that. Caleb called me a fake aunt who doesn't support dreams. Melanie accused me of humiliating the family. Drew asked if there had been some sort of mistake with the payment. My mother's name hovered at the top of the screen, unpressed. I poured coffee and stared out the window at the bus stop, at strangers who didn't know I had just ended a ritual I never agreed to in the first place. By lunchtime, the public campaign had started. Melanie's Facebook status was the usual masterpiece of vague arrows. Funny how the people with the most to give are the first to withhold. Betrayal always comes from those closest. Lesson learned. Likes multiplied like pigeons. Her backup dancers filed into the comments with, "You deserve better, babe," and "Cut the toxicity out." I didn't reply. I didn't even click. A screenshot arrived from my cousin Rachel with a popcorn emoji. Guess someone didn't get their prom money. I sent back a single dot. Rachel has always known how to signal without setting anything on fire. In the afternoon, Mom called. She skipped the warm-up. "Melanie is very upset," she said, like a weather report. "She says you embarrassed her in front of Caleb, and it's caused a huge rift with Drew." "What humiliation?" I asked. I told a 17-year-old to work for prom money. There was a long, tired exhale on the line. "I don't want to be in the middle," she said. "I just wish you two would stop fighting." "This isn't a fight, Mom," I said softly. "It's a boundary." She didn't argue. She didn't scold. She didn't say what she would have said 2 years ago, or 5, which was some version of be kind, help out, it's just money. Instead, she went quiet long enough that I wondered if we'd lost the call. "You've done enough," she said finally. "She's going through a lot." It sounded like sympathy, but it felt like a crack in old concrete. For the first time, her voice didn't bend toward Melanie by default. It hung in the middle and waited. By 3, Drew left a voicemail. Hey, Sloan. Saw the mortgage payment didn't go through. Is everything okay? His tone was polite, careful, like someone testing a bridge they already suspect is rotten. I didn't call back. If Melanie wanted the script where I was the villain, she could carry it to her own husband without my handwriting all over the page. That evening, Caleb tried again. I need the $1,600, he texted. This is important. It's prom. Then, as if reciting, Mom says you're being selfish. I thought about him as a toddler I used to carry on my hip while Melanie ran errands, about the Lego towers he'd build and knock over with the joy of a king who never learned walls are work. Work for it, I repeated and set my phone face down again. Hours later, Melanie left me a voicemail I listened to once, and then again to make sure I hadn't imagined the word, "You think this is over? You just made yourself the enemy of the family." Enemy, not sister. Not the person who covered her mortgage through a winter and her son's first year of college, with nothing but a quiet, "it's okay" to accompany each transfer. A villain, because I'd finally taken my hand off the hot stove and refused to press it back down. I ran the dishwasher even though it was half empty. The hum steadied me. My apartment at night is a gentle thing. Lamplight on book spines, the low purr of the fridge, a plant leaning toward whatever sun it remembers. It struck me then that I had built a life where quiet didn't mean danger. That's what their house taught me to forget. Silence, there was always the drop before impact. Here, it was peace. I scrolled back through old threads, a private archaeology. January. Melanie. We just need a little help this month. March. Drew. Thanks for doing this, Sloan. April. Caleb. Auntie, you're the best far. The compliments always pooled around the deposit dates. The gratitude evaporated faster than the money ever could, and threaded through it all were Melanie's casual mentions of a friend from the gym, someone who actually listens, that I'd shrugged off at the time as harmless, the way you ignore a draft under a door until winter arrives and the room won't warm. A cousin's text from weeks ago surfaced when I wasn't looking for it. Rachel again, a blurry photo of Melanie at a downtown restaurant with a man I didn't recognize, captioned, "Yoga night, huh?" I hadn't responded. It hadn't felt like my place, but it lodged in my memory like a pin. On its own, nothing. Next to everything else, a shadow on an X-ray. Sometime after 10, I pulled a notebook from the drawer and made a list. Not of money, not of debts, but of thresholds. No threats, memerets, I wrote. No public smears. No more emergency-only transparency. No more being the first call and the last to be thanked. And then I added one more, almost as an afterthought, but it glowed on the page. No more financing the lie. I didn't know yet where that line would lead. I only knew it was real. Before bed, I opened the mortgage portal one more time. The page looked different to me now. Not like a lifesaver ring I kept throwing from my deck, but like a dock I'd finally stepped off to swim on my own. Payment method. None on file. Auto pay. Off. I closed the laptop and let the room darken around me. At 11:17, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number that read like a stage whisper. People are starting to talk. It was Aunt Linda, I'd bet anything. People always start to talk when power changes hands. I turned the phone over and pressed my palm against it as if I could warm all the words in it into something kinder. Then I put it face down and went to brush my teeth. The mirror offered me the same outline of a woman as yesterday. Tired, stubborn, soft around the edges, where years of caretaking had whittled away the sharper lines. But my eyes looked steadier. Refusing to pay wasn't the victory. Refusing to participate in the ritual was. I slid under the blanket and let the hum of ordinary machines carry me toward sleep. Somewhere across town, Melanie was typing a new status, rehearsing a new story, fitting my name into the villain's mouth. Somewhere on his phone, Drew was opening the mortgage app and seeing the same blank where my card used to be. Somewhere in his room, Caleb was calculating the cost of a suit and a limo and a night he'd remember mostly in pictures. And in a drawer in their office, neatly labeled, easily ignored, sat a folder with the boring bones of a life, the mortgage, the tax returns, a prenup Melanie pretended had never mattered. I didn't know yet which of those papers would become a match. I only knew I wasn't the fuel anymore. I fell asleep with the taste of coffee still faint on my tongue and the quiet settling around me like a blanket I finally owned. In the morning, the calls would come sharper, the posts would grow louder, the story would tilt to make room for a new villain. But for tonight, the only thing running on autopay was my peace. By the next morning, the chaos had found its rhythm. Melanie had never been good at waiting for silence to end naturally. She always had to fill it, reshape it, make it hers. And by 8 o'clock a.m., she'd already started composing her version of the story. When I woke, my phone was a glowing battlefield. Notifications stacked on top of one another, each one more absurd than the last. The first was her Facebook post. Funny how the people with the most to give are the first to withhold. Betrayal always comes from those closest. Lesson learned. The likes were already rolling in. 47 the first time I checked, and more each minute. Same predictable crowd. Old friends from high school who hadn't spoken to her in years, but loved a bit of drama with their morning coffee. Book club acquaintances who shared quotes about forgiveness between gossip threads. And of course, the chorus of sympathy. You deserve better, babe. Family can be the worst sometimes. Protect your peace. The kind of comments that make you feel validated for your worst behavior. I didn't respond. I never do. But Rachel, my cousin, the one who keeps her popcorn ready for family fires, texted me a screenshot. Guess someone didn't get their prom money. Then the popcorn emoji again. I replied with a single period. She got it. By noon, the campaign had spread. Melanie had moved from Facebook to the family group chat. Her message was a masterpiece of martyrdom. It's heartbreaking to realize how easily some people throw you away when they're done using you for their own ego. I hope none of you ever experience being abandoned the way I have. I stared at it, watching the 3 gray dots that meant someone was typing, then vanish. No one replied. Not one aunt, not one cousin, not even Mom. That silence said more than any defense could. At 3 p.m., Mom finally called. Her voice was weary, the kind of tired that seeps in after decades of pretending chaos is just how family works. Melanie is very upset, she began, skipping the hello. She says you humiliated her in front of Caleb. Says you caused a rift between him and Drew. I pressed my lips together. What humiliation? I told her son to work for his prom money. A sigh, long and familiar. I just wish you two would stop fighting. You've both said hurtful things. Mom, this isn't a fight. It's me saying no for once. Silence. Then, softer than before. You've done enough, but she's going through a lot. It was the gentlest sentence, but it cracked something in me. Because it wasn't the usual script. For the first time in my entire life, Mom didn't rush to defend her. She sounded unsure, almost done. Then maybe, I said quietly, she needs to go through it. Later that evening, another voicemail. This one was from Drew. Hey, Sloan, saw the mortgage payment didn't go through. Is everything okay? His tone was polite, like someone trying not to disturb a sleeping lion. I didn't reply. If Melanie wanted to weaponize chaos, let her explain it to her own husband. That's when it started, the guilt fog. You know the one. The voice in your head that says you've gone too far. The old conditioning that makes you double-check if you were cruel simply for refusing to burn. So, I opened my laptop, scrolled through old messages, old transactions. A year's worth of rescues. March, the first mortgage payment. April, the follow-up because the system glitched. June, Caleb's tuition transfer, $15,000 with the subject line for his future. August, a Zelle transfer for car trouble. November, just until Drew's bonus clears. Every payment followed by the same thing, silence until the next emergency. It hit me then, how much I'd spent not on bills, but on buying peace. And peace rented that way never lasts long. By Wednesday, Melanie had turned up the volume. She uploaded a blurry photo of Caleb in his prom suit from last year, captioned, "Proud of this kid, even when others don't see his worth." The comments were rabid with sympathy. Some people forget where they came from. Jealousy is ugly. She'll regret it one day. And my favorite, blood doesn't make family. Loyalty does. Loyalty, the word she always used like a leash. I typed out a reply and deleted it before sending. Then I turned off my phone, lit a candle, and let her little digital mob chant itself hoarse in the dark. But you can't ignore a manipulator. They thrive in silence. The next day, she started texting everyone privately, one by one, like a politician campaigning door to door. Rachel sent me a screenshot of hers. Sloane's been struggling. Please don't judge her. She's lashing out because she's lonely. I laughed out loud. The woman who spent years painting me as cold was now selling me as pitiful. Then came the voicemail, the one I played only once, because once was enough. Her voice was shaky, but not from sadness, from anger. You think this is over? You just made yourself the enemy of the family. Enjoy it. Enemy. That word sat in my chest like a swallowed stone. It was almost funny, the escalation, from sister to villain to enemy. I could see the map of her mind perfectly, the victim in need of a villain to make her story work. She always needed a villain. When her landlord raised the rent, it was his greed. When Drew didn't get a promotion, it was office politics. When Caleb bombed a class, it was the system. Now I was the system. That night, the guilt tried to crawl back. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the glow of my phone, half expecting Mom to call again, half wanting her to. But she didn't. Instead, Rachel texted, "She's on a rampage, don't bite." "I'm fine," I wrote back. "No, you're free," she replied. "That's what this feels like the first time." I stared at those words for a long time. Free. It didn't feel like freedom yet. It felt like the shaky, uncertain quiet right after a door slams shut in a haunted house. But maybe that's what liberation sounds like at first, empty. By Friday, the silence flipped again. No calls, no posts, no voicemails. Just stillness, which in Melanie's world never meant peace, it meant plotting. I should have seen what was coming next. The next storm she'd stir, the truth I'd finally release, and the way it would burn everything she thought she could control. But for now, I just sat in that quiet, drinking cold coffee, waiting for the next move in a game I no longer played. The silence didn't last. It never does. Not with Melanie. By Sunday afternoon, my phone lit up with a voicemail from Drew. His tone was steady, too steady, like someone rehearsing calm before they walk into a storm. "Hey, Sloan, can we talk for a minute?" That was it. No small talk, no preamble. Just the tone of a man trying not to say too much until he knows what he's walking into. I waited a full day before calling back. Not because I needed time to think, because I wanted to make sure I wasn't doing it out of anger. When I finally did, I didn't sugarcoat anything. "Yes," I said. "I canceled the mortgage payments." He didn't sound surprised. "May I ask why?" "Because I'm done being the family's bailout plan," I said. "Because your wife asked me for $1,600 for prom like it was a grocery run. Because I paid your mortgage for 6 months without ever being thanked, let alone reimbursed." There was a pause. Then he said, "Honestly, I don't blame you." That stopped me cold. He let out a slow breath. "I knew things between you and Mel were bad. I just didn't realize how bad." I almost hung up right there. But then the sentence I'd been sitting on for weeks finally slipped free. "Drew, there's something else you should know." Silence again, the kind that hums. "It's about someone from her gym," I said carefully. "A man she's been seeing outside your marriage." He didn't ask who. He didn't yell or deny. He just went very, very quiet. "She mentioned him to me once," I continued. "Said he actually listens." I didn't think much of it until Rachel told me she saw her downtown a few times. Late dinners. Same guy. Always on nights she said she had yoga. "I see," he said finally. His voice didn't crack. It just flattened into something heavy. "I'm not saying this to hurt you," I added. "I'm saying it because she's been lying to everyone, and you deserve the truth from someone who has no reason to lie." "Thank you," he said softly. "I'll handle it." Then he hung up. It took 20 minutes for Melanie to start calling. First once, then again, then 6 times in a row. I didn't answer. Her text came next, a spiral of fury and desperation. "What did you say to Drew?" "You don't know the whole story. You just blew up my life. Are you happy now?" I read them all, then turned off my phone. Because for the first time it hit me. She wasn't manipulating. She was panicking. That night, I dreamed of their house. In the dream, I was walking through it in the dark. The air was cold, and every surface was covered in unopened mail. Stacks of envelopes by the toaster, on the stairs, spilling across the floor like snowdrifts. When I reached for one, the ink on the front blurred into a single word, lies. I woke up sweating. Sometimes your body knows when the next truth is about to hit before your mind does. It came the next morning in the form of a text from Caleb. "I need to talk. Things are bad at home." I almost ignored it. I told myself I should. But there's something about hearing a kid's voice wobble for the first time that unravels every line you've drawn. I called him back. He sounded smaller than I remembered. "Dad's gone," he said. "He left last night. They were fighting about you, about money, about other stuff." He packed a bag and took some papers from the office drawer. "The drawer." I froze. "What kind of papers?" I asked. "I don't know. Just stuff with their names on it. Legal looking." My heart dropped. I knew that drawer. Everyone in the family did. It was where they kept every important document: mortgage contracts, tax returns, birth certificates, and a prenup Melanie always pretended didn't exist. Are you safe? I asked him. He hesitated. Yeah, Mom's just losing it. He sounded scared, not angry, not defiant. Scared. I'm fine, I said gently. Just stay somewhere quiet tonight, okay? Keep your phone close. He didn't reply, just whispered, I think she's drinking again, before hanging up. By Tuesday, news travels in families like smoke through vents. Ellie, our cousin who interned at a law firm last summer, called me, whispering like we were trading secrets. Drew reached out, she said. He asked me for a referral. He's hiring a lawyer. My jaw tightened. He actually did it? Yeah, she said. And he mentioned the prenup, said he found it. The one she'd sworn didn't exist. That was when I realized what had really been in that drawer. 2 days later, Grandma called. You're not going to believe this, she said. Melanie showed up at my house. That alone was strange. Melanie hadn't seen Grandma in over a year. She'd once told me the old woman smelled like mothballs and regret. She was shaking, Grandma continued. Came with a bottle of wine. Sat on my couch crying about betrayal, family, loneliness. Said nobody understands what it's like to be hated by your own blood. What did you do? I asked. I poured her a glass, Grandma said. She poured it back into the bottle and left. I blinked. She what? She poured the wine back in, Grandma repeated. Said it was too early to drink. Then she just walked out without saying goodbye. I didn't know whether to laugh or feel sorry for her. That was Melanie in a single act. Dramatic, self-sabotaging, and somehow still trying to stay in control of the narrative, even as it crumbled around her. That night, I found myself scrolling through her deactivated social accounts. Everything gone. Facebook, Instagram, even Pinterest. No posts, no followers, no audience. And yet, the silence didn't feel like defeat. It felt like a pause before the next performance. The difference this time was that no one was watching anymore. On Friday morning, Rachel called. Her voice was hushed, like she was afraid the truth might overhear her. Drew moved out officially, she said. He's staying with a friend. He told people at work he's filing next week. I closed my eyes. Does Melanie know? Not yet, but she will. And when she does... We both went quiet. We didn't have to finish the sentence. When people like Melanie lose control, they don't rebuild. They explode. I spent that weekend in my apartment, watching the city outside my window. People going about their lives, unaware that one family's foundation had just split down the middle. I thought about the drawer again. The papers, the signatures, the truth hiding in plain sight for years. I thought about how many times I'd saved her, and how many times she'd mistaken that for weakness. And for the first time, I didn't feel angry. I felt done. Because the thing about truth is, it doesn't destroy you. It just removes the lie you were living in. And Melanie's lies had finally run out of space. By Monday morning, the fallout had reached critical mass. Melanie was no longer just unraveling. She was free-falling. The kind of spiral you could see coming, but still winced when it hit. Drew had officially moved out. Caleb was sleeping at friends' houses, and the whispers running through the family. Group chat had gone from what happened to we all knew this was coming. But the part she hadn't figured out yet, the part that was going to break everything, was that I still had one final thread left to pull. It started with a call to the university's financial office. The woman on the line sounded confused when I asked whether tuition payments could be reversed. You mean canceled? She asked. Rescinded, I clarified, if I paid it personally. There was a brief pause while she checked. Yes, ma'am. If the funds were paid directly and haven't been fully dispersed, you have the right to withdraw them. Good, I said. Let's do that. As I hung up, my reflection in the dark laptop screen looked unfamiliar. Tired, maybe, but steady. This wasn't revenge. It was closure. $15,000. Gone from their ledger. Back to mine. It would take 2 weeks to process, the university said. 2 weeks for the digital cord that tethered me to their chaos to finally snap. The first reaction came faster than I expected. At 9:42 that night, my phone buzzed with a new text from Caleb. Caleb, they just emailed me. My tuition got canceled. I'll lose enrollment if I don't pay. What did you do? I typed slowly, deliberately. Me. Actions have consequences, Caleb. I hope this teaches you something. He didn't reply, just 3 gray dots that blinked, disappeared, and never came back. The next morning, Melanie's social media accounts vanished one by one. First Facebook, then Instagram. Even her Pinterest, the one filled with self-help quotes about boundaries and rebirth, gone. For her to delete the stage meant something worse than embarrassment. It meant exposure. That afternoon, I found out why. A GoFundMe page surfaced briefly before it disappeared. The title, Single Mother Abandoned by Toxic Family. The description was a tapestry of half-truths and sob stories, each one threaded with my name, just vague enough for plausible deniability. She'd listed a goal of $10,000. The donations barely cracked $300 before someone commented, "Didn't your husband leave because of the affair?" By morning, the page was deleted. And for the first time in years, she was quiet. Truly, completely quiet. 2 nights later, my dad hosted dinner. No special reason, just a family meal that somehow became an unspoken ritual after every major meltdown. The difference this time was the calm. Everyone came early. The air smelled like garlic bread and relief. Even Mom showed up, carrying a pie like peace offering, and exhaustion rolled into one. For the first time in a long time, laughter didn't feel borrowed. We talked about everything but Melanie, about Rachel's new job, about Ellie's law school applications, about Dad's ridiculous attempt at learning Italian. No one tiptoed around the room waiting for the explosion. No one whispered, "Don't upset her." It was strange how normal dinner could feel when chaos didn't have a seat. Later, while washing dishes, Mom broke the silence. "She said terrible things about me, didn't she?" The question came so softly I almost pretended not to hear it. I didn't answer right away, I just handed her the towel. She nodded slowly, the kind of nod that belongs to someone who already knows the answer, but needs to feel it spoken by someone else. "She said I was a burden," she continued, "that I only call when I need something." "She says that about everyone," I said quietly. "But I'm her mother," she whispered. Then she smiled, small, sad. Maybe that's the problem. I kept letting her treat me like she was mine. We didn't talk after that. We just stood side by side, 2 women drying dishes in a kitchen that finally felt peaceful. The next morning, an envelope was slipped under my door. No stamp, no return address. Inside was a single folded sheet of paper, handwriting slanted and angry. "You finally won." That was it. No signature, but she didn't need one. I would have recognized that script anywhere. I stared at the words for a long time, waiting to feel something. Guilt, triumph, maybe sadness. But all I felt was distance. Because there was nothing to win. This was never a competition. It was a rescue mission that ended when the person I was trying to save set the house on fire. I folded the paper and slipped it back into the envelope. Didn't tear it up. Didn't frame it. Just tucked it into a drawer beside my old receipts, a relic of transactions that bought nothing but headaches. The days that followed felt lighter. Dad called to say Drew had officially filed. Rachel said Caleb was staying with him. Ellie mentioned, almost proudly, that she'd referred Drew to one of her old professors for legal help. Melanie had burned through every bridge, every favor, every illusion. Mom stopped asking how she was. Even Aunt Linda, queen of unsolicited forgiveness, sent me a text that read, "Sometimes letting someone hit bottom is the only mercy left." I didn't respond. I just sat on the balcony with a glass of wine, watching the city flicker. The air felt still for once, no static of pending disaster, no dread in my stomach waiting for the next request. The truth had finally done what money never could. It ended the cycle. That night, I wrote a note to myself on the same piece of stationery I'd found the envelope in. "You don't owe anyone your ruin." I folded it neatly and left it on the counter where I'd once placed all my receipts for Melanie's emergencies. It was the first debt I'd ever written off without regret. By the following week, the aftermath had stopped feeling like aftermath. It started feeling like a new kind of normal. Melanie had gone completely silent. No calls, no messages, no new accounts popping up under slightly misspelled versions of her name. For years, she'd lived through attention. The constant hum of reaction, outrage, sympathy, anything. Now, without it, her existence seemed to fade. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I just felt still. Drew's divorce filing went through faster than anyone expected. Ellie, ever the family reporter, called to tell me. Her voice carried both professionalism and awe. "He's not asking for much," she said. "Just the house, his car, and custody." "Temporary?" I asked. "No," she said, "full custody." The words hung there. I could hear the shuffle of papers on her end, the sound of a cousin who'd grown up watching the same chaos and was finally seeing it written in legal language. "How's his case look?" I asked. "Strong. She has no job, no savings, no support, and the affair, well, that's not helping her." I didn't ask who confirmed it. I didn't need to. Caleb moved in with Drew a few days later. He didn't make a grand announcement. Just texted Rachel a photo of a duffel bag in the trunk of his car with the caption, "Starting over." She forwarded it to me. 2 days after that, he texted me directly for the first time in months. Caleb. At a job fair today. Attached was a picture of him in a wrinkled button-down shirt. The bleach blonde streak was gone. Caleb. Trying. I stared at that single word longer than I probably should have. He didn't ask for help, didn't mention money, just trying. Then, a week later, another message. Caleb. I didn't know how much she lied until I lived without her. I didn't reply. Some messages aren't meant to be answered. They're meant to echo. That weekend, Dad hosted another family dinner. The first one since the storm fully passed. Everyone brought something. Rachel's infamous mac and cheese. Ellie's store-bought pie she swore she baked. Mom's roast chicken, because she didn't know how to arrive anywhere empty-handed. The house was full, warm, ordinary. No tension, no eggshells, no emotional landmines waiting to explode between bites. For years, family dinners had been tightropes, smiles stretched too thin, compliments that doubled as insults, Melanie's voice filling every pause like static. This one felt different, like exhaling after holding your breath too long. After dinner, while everyone lingered around dessert, Dad poured himself a drink and leaned against the counter. You know, he said, she always thought she could control the story, but I think deep down she knew she'd lose if you ever walked away. I didn't respond right away. He looked at me, glass halfway to his lips. You saved this family, Sloan. I hope you know that. I smiled, small and quiet. Maybe I just stopped being the one holding it together for her. He nodded, a kind of unspoken agreement that this was as close to closure as our family ever got. After everyone left, Mom and I stayed behind to clean up. She hummed while drying dishes, an old tune she used to sing when we were little. You think she'll call? She asked after a while. Melanie? Yes. I thought about it. No, I said finally. And if she does, I won't answer. Mom didn't argue. She just nodded, a soft acceptance in her eyes that told me she finally understood what boundaries were meant to do. Protect, not punish. That night, lying in bed, I replayed the last few months like a film. The text that started it all. The dinner that broke everything. The lies, the drawer, the envelope, the silence that followed. Somehow, through all of it, the noise in my head, the constant worry about keeping everyone afloat, had gone quiet. For the first time in my adult life, my peace wasn't something I had to earn. It just existed. The next morning, Rachel called. Court hearings next week, she said. Drew's lawyer thinks it'll go through clean. Caleb's staying with him full-time. What about Melanie? I asked. She's been missing calls. Her lawyer can't reach her. Ellie says she stopped showing up to preliminary meetings. So she's just giving up? Rachel hesitated. Maybe she finally realized what happens when you run out of people to blame. Later that day, while sorting through old paperwork, I found the envelope again, the one that said, "You finally won." I almost threw it away, but instead I unfolded it and wrote one line beneath hers. No one wins when you set your own life on fire. Then I folded it back up, slipped it into a drawer, and closed it softly. In the evening, I met Rachel for coffee. We sat by the window, watching the city lights blink on. You think she'll ever come back? She asked. She'll try, I said. People like Melanie always do. But the thing is, when she comes back, it won't be to reconnect. It'll be to rewrite. Rachel stirred her drink. And you'll let her? I shook my head. Not this time. I've spent enough years being her editor. She smiled, then raised her cup. To peace, then. To peace, I echoed. And for once, it didn't feel like a wish. It felt like a fact. The day of the hearing arrived quietly, almost anticlimactically. No explosions, no angry voicemails, no last-minute declarations from Melanie. Just a sterile courthouse morning, gray skies, and an ending that didn't even bother to make noise. Drew won full custody. Ellie texted me the verdict. It's done, no appeal. She didn't even show up. Apparently, her second lawyer, she'd fired the first one for being disrespectful, stood in front of the judge and admitted he hadn't been able to reach her in over a week. She'd vanished, both digitally and physically. Caleb stayed with Drew. The university allowed him to re-enroll on a payment plan, and Drew picked up a second freelance contract to cover it. I didn't step in, not because I was bitter, because I was finally done. I didn't owe rescue to people who'd learned to drown on purpose. Weeks passed, and the silence stayed. No more Facebook statuses about betrayal. No cryptic posts about loyalty. No texts from unknown numbers pretending to be friends, asking for her side of the story. Melanie was gone. There were rumors, of course. Families never let ghosts rest. Rachel heard she was working at a yoga studio outside the city. Ellie said someone spotted her grocery shopping in a small town an hour north. Aunt Linda swore she got an email from her with a subject line that read, "Reclaiming Peace," and an empty body. But no one knew for sure. You only get to cry wolf so many times before people stop checking for fire. A month later, Dad hosted what we called the first real reunion. No hidden agendas, no guilt trips disguised as invitations. Just food, music, and laughter echoing through the house without anyone tiptoeing around old wounds. Melanie wasn't invited, neither was Drew or Caleb. We figured they'd earned their own kind of quiet. For once, everyone showed up early. Rachel brought ribs, Ellie brought wine, Mom brought her pie again. We ate until we were full, laughed until the air felt light, and for the first time in years, there wasn't an elephant sitting in the middle of the room waiting for an audience. When the plates were cleared, Dad found me on the porch, cigarette unlit between his fingers. "You know," he said, "she always knew this would happen. She just thought she'd find a way to stop it before it did." I nodded. She believed control was the same thing as love. He looked out at the trees, "And you stopped giving her both." I didn't say anything, but I knew he was right. The next day, a message arrived in my inbox. No subject line, no greeting. Just an old email address I hadn't seen in years. Melanie Mercer, 79. The message contained a single sentence. "I never needed your money. I needed your loyalty." I read it twice, then I deleted it. Because loyalty without respect isn't love, it's servitude. And that was the only kind of loyalty she ever wanted from me. A week later, a small envelope appeared in my mailbox. No return address again. Inside was a photo. Caleb, standing next to Drew on their back patio, grilling burgers. Both of them smiling. The handwriting on the back said, "We're okay, really." I stared at it until my vision blurred. He didn't need to apologize. He didn't need to thank me. That picture said everything. Life, it turns out, doesn't explode when you cut the wrong people loose. It exhales. My phone is quiet now. My accounts are my own. My evenings belong to silence instead of anxiety. Sometimes, on Sundays, I drive out to Mom's house with groceries and sit with her in the kitchen while she hums and flips through recipes she'll never actually make. We don't talk about Melanie anymore, not because we're avoiding her, because she's finally not the center of everything. Mom once said, "You think she'll ever come back?" I'd smiled. Maybe. But if she does, it won't be to rebuild. It'll be to rewrite. Mom nodded, half to herself, then let her write it somewhere else. It's strange, this piece. How loud it can feel when you've lived most of your life bracing for the next emergency. Sometimes I still expect my phone to light up at midnight with a crisis that isn't mine. But it never does. Instead, there's just the soft hum of normal life, coffee brewing, laundry tumbling, a message from Rachel about next month's dinner. People always say family is forever, but what they don't tell you is that forever doesn't mean together. Sometimes family is just the starting line, where you learn what love shouldn't cost. And when you finally stop paying for peace, you realize it was never supposed to come with a price tag. Because walking away isn't giving up. Sometimes it's the only way to finally win.